o'clock. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning and welcome to the April 7th County Commission meeting. I would remind you to silence your cell phones. The meeting documents are on the end of the counter next to Commissioner Bender. And if you need a listening device, Ken is in the front row and he could help you with that. That way we'll go on to routine business. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second to approve. Any changes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 2 is approve the County Commission meetings from March 31st, 2015. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Are there any amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 3, bills to be paid in the amount of $188,371.62.
Pay the bills.
Second. A motion and a second. Are there any comments on the bills? Commissioner Barth.
Madam Chair, this is about as low a total on a weekly group of bills as we get in a year, but it does include 97 individual bills for mental illness, going from $25 to $6,000, and that's just part of the burden that the county carries.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Barth. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second on the bills. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 4 is reports. We have a report from the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Department on file at the Auditor's Office for the month of March. And item number 5 is personnel actions. Item number A is consider a motion to approve the routine personnel actions. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
And a second. Any questions for Carrie? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Carrie, you want to move on with the next? Recognition of significant employee anniversaries for April 2015.
A fairly short list for you this morning. I have Jennifer Stanley, who's a CO in the jail, and Sarah Watchell, who works for the State's Attorney's Office, both celebrating 5 years of service this month. Deb Kritzer, who's a senior tax and license technician, is celebrating 10 years. Brian Vandenhol and James Ness, who are both juvenile correctional officers, are celebrating 15 years, and Jason Igmanson, who's an Air Guard security officer too, is celebrating 15 years as well.
Okay, thank you. And item number C is recognize volunteers in the county departments for March 2015.
A bit of a banner month, 273 volunteers in 8 different areas of county. So we're used to seeing above 200, but this is pushing 300, so a lot of gratitude to those individuals.
Yeah. And that kind of rolls right into item number B, which is consider a motion to issue proclamation recognizing April 12th through 28th as the Volunteer Work Week in Minnehaha County.
And that pretty much says it. With that many individuals supporting us, 232 was our average for 2014. With that many individuals supporting us each month, this is one small way to recognize their service and support to the county. So we're asking that you issue a proclamation announcing April 12th to the 18th of this year as Minnehaha County's Volunteer Week as well.
Could I ask you to read it, Carrie?
Sure.
Please. Thank you.
The Minnehaha County Proclamation for Volunteer Week. Whereas National Volunteer Week is April 12th through the 18th of 2015. And whereas National Volunteer Week is about inspiring, recognizing, and encouraging people to seek out imaginative ways to engage in their communities. And whereas volunteers make a significant contribution to Minnehaha County. In 2014, each month an average of approximately 232 volunteers contributed to several areas throughout county, giving thousands of hours of service, enriching the lives of those that they help, and saving the taxpayers of Minnehaha County tens of thousands of dollars. And whereas the Minnehaha County Commission wishes to thank all of the individuals who have given their time to support county government and make our community a better place to live, now therefore, the Minnehaha County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim April 12th to the 18th, 2015 as Minnehaha County Volunteer Week.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? I think it says, well, what it is. We have a huge group of volunteers, and they do save the county and taxpayers a considerable amount of money. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number E is consider a motion to approve amendments to the Minnehaha County Equal Opportunity and Affirmative Action Policy. Carrie.
Minnehaha County has a long-standing tradition of doing and taking the steps necessary to prevent discrimination and harassment in the workplace. Our policy has been fairly expansive. It covers federally protected groups, state protected groups, and others as well. As a federal contractor, we were aware that Executive Order 13672 was passed, and it applies to all federal contractors, and it's requiring that we specifically reference sexual orientation and gender identity in our policies, advertisements, and solicitations. At heart, this requires very little change for Minnehaha County. We've long considered gender identity to be part of gender as a protected group, and I believe we've referenced sexual orientation since the 1970s. So little actual change, but to be compliant, we would need to have your approval to technically add gender identity to 3 policies. And those policies are our Equal Opportunity and Affirmative Action Policy, our Non-Discrimination and Anti-Harassment Policy, and our Equal Employment Opportunity Grievance Policy. So I'm asking for your approval on those 3 changes today.
Are there any questions for Carrie? Commissioner Kelly.
Carrie, right now we are compliant, right? I mean, in our language, or not?
We are compliant with federal
Why do
regulations.
we have to change this? That's my question.
Because to be compliant with Executive Order 1362 or 672, we need to specifically reference gender identity in the policy and specifically reference sexual orientation. Now, we've referenced sexual orientation since the 1970s, and for us, gender identity we've considered to be a form of gender discrimination. But technically, to be compliant, yes, we need to add those 2 words. So I'm asking for your support to do so today.
Any other questions? Look for a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you, Carrie. Item number 6 is application for abatements. Pam Nelson. Good morning, Pam.
Good morning. Today we have 2 assessment freeze abatements. We have record ID 24293 for $13.45, and we have record ID 23430 for $1,460.74.
Are there any questions for Pam on the abatements? Look for a motion for both of those.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the abatements. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you,
you.
Pam. Item number 7 is notices and requests. Item A is notice from the South Dakota Department of Health of disinterment permit issued for the remains of Harold Olson, Hills of Rest Memorial Park, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Item B is notice of intent to conduct a fundraising raffle from Sioux Falls Jaycees in conjunction with the annual 4th of July fireworks celebration. Item 8 is planning and zoning notices. There are none. Item number 9 is petition for compromise of lien. Jeff Bart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first one is DP&O 28081. The costs on this were to the applicant's ex-husband and were not removed from the title of their property after their divorce. Anyway, $975 were withheld when she sold the property by the title company and given to us. The applicant is asking us to refund this money, which was improperly collected, not improperly, but in error collected by the title company, and leave the debt against the ex-husband. And I'll make a motion to refund that money and leave the lien to apply against the ex-husband.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Is there any comments? Is the applicant here? I don't think so. Just a clarification, the divorce happened long before these charges existed, and these charges were put on the homeowner
Right.
years and years after the divorce had been final. So we are just rectifying an error. So I have a motion and a second to approve DP&O 28081 for the amount of $975 and leave the lien against the husband.
I have one more. I'm sorry, I do have a question.
Commissioner Kelly.
Why did they were divorced in what, 1995? 95 or 80?
95, yes,
And this is a 2013 bill.
right.
How did that happen?
Commissioner Ken?
This lien account was originally started when the couple was in fact married, and there were services that were incurred by them both when they were married. We did not get formal notification, which we rarely do, of a formal divorce action. So the name has been on that lien account for a long, long time. The title company then, when they go in to take a look at do they consider there to be a cloud on the title, they match up dates of our liens versus dates and names on liens versus dates that they might appear on the title to the property. And that's how they make the match. So this was a title company function, not necessarily us. And so by the time they were divorced, and if you go through the lien account, you will see that that was totally zeroed out at one time. The lien account was at zero. And it wasn't until clearly after the divorce that the last service came in for the ex-husband, and it was noted on the account, which still had the ex-wife's name on it because it had never been changed.
So if her attorney would have checked at the divorce time to make sure there was no liens or anything, it would have showed none.
Right. There were none.
But because we don't change our deal,
Then the title company because we had a notification of the formal divorce
I think it's
until
just
we got this
unfortunate that they
application.
have to run into that 10 years later or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing there's a process to rectify that.
Right. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Barth, we have item number B, DP&O number 20410, in the amount of $11,229.91.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This lien began in 1986 and services continued to 2004. The applicant has made payments since 2013 totaling $440. In his application, he has a job where he's making just over $42,000 a year. He spent 30 years in prison, said he didn't know that he owed this money, and the corrections department told him that he didn't owe anything when he got out. Now he has medical bills, he's got reduced hours, he says he is drowning in debt, he can't afford it, and he wants us to release this without any additional payment. I don't believe that the applicant is here.
Is the applicant here? No.
Well, thank you. I cannot support this at this time. We don't pursue people, we're not towing their car in the middle of the night, etc. We do need that money back because there are other people that need services. And so I will propose, I'll make a motion to decline his proposal.
I have a motion to decline. Is there a second?
I'll second them.
I have a motion, a second decline. Comments? Commissioner Benega?
My only question or comment would be is obviously he had some knowledge of the debt because he started making regular payments while he was in prison based on his revenue at that point. So I guess I'm wondering why all of a sudden he decided he didn't need to make payments other than the fact that, quote, the Department of Corrections told him he didn't have to. It seems a little ambiguous.
Commissioner Benega, the only record I have is that payments had started in January of 2014 after he was released. Do you have others?
That's the same date, but why would he start making payments right after he was told he didn't need to make payments?
Because he was told after he was released. Ken, you want to clarify some of the questions?
Sure. From what I can tell here, when the payment started, you'll notice that there's two annotations there for a payment. One is the collection fee, one shows, quote, partial payment on the lien, which means that he was contacted by our collection agency and that to Hauge and Associates to begin payments on the lien account.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Barth.
Having sat here for some years listening to these, it's pretty common for people to say they had no idea that they would owe any of this, but in fact they do. And the rates that we charge for our public defender, public advocate to defend people are quite reasonable compared to what an outside attorney would charge. And for all those out there that owe us money, we need it back so that we can help others.
Are there any other comments? I think Commissioner Barth has said it, and we accept any amount of payments, and I think he's made a good effort to get started and just continue on. So I have a motion and a second to deny DP&O number 20410. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. The next item is opportunity for public comment. This is if you would like to speak to the commission on an item that is not on the agenda, this would be the time. Seeing none, we'll move on to regular business. First item of regular business is a public hearing to consider application for special events, on-sale wine retail license, and special event malt beverage license for Chef Dominique's Catering for a wedding reception at 48779 258th Street, Garrettson, South Dakota on September 5th, 2015. Darlene Johnson.
Good morning, Darlene Johnson from the Auditor's Office. Our office received a special event wine and malt beverage application from Chef Dominique's Catering. We forwarded them to the Sheriff's Office, State's Attorney's Office, and Planning and Zoning, and there were no objections or concerns reported. We thought there was going to be somebody from Chef Dominique's here, and I don't know if there is or not. But our action requested is for approval of a special event license.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so are there any proponents? Anyone in favor present? Is there anyone opposed present? Okay, seeing none, I would look for a motion from the commission.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
Well,
Commissioner Kelly?
once again, this goes against, I can't remember the number we were told last week. but
3.
3. It goes against Chef Dominique.
I said that wrong. How much
I
is
still
this?
think this is a situation that needs to be looked at as far as whether or not
Okay.
the particular party has it charged against them rather than the caterer. Business has changed a lot, and catering is much more extensive now than it used to be. But I'm in favor of this. I just think it's unfortunate that it goes against Dominique's.
And I misspoke. It's 6, not
Or
3. 6 per.
6 per year, and perhaps we
Yes.
could address that. I don't know, but I think it's for future talk we ought to do it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve this special on-sale liquor license. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 11 is consider resolution declaring a fire danger emergency in Minnehaha County and prohibit open burning. Linda Young. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Young, Emergency Management. What you have in front of you is a declaration declaring a fire emergency within Minnehaha County and prohibiting open burning, if you choose to pass it. Just a little background. As you know, we worked with the rural fire chiefs to come up with this recommendation. The last several weeks, this is something that they've actually been discussing at their meetings and within electronic format and over that. And they finally have come to the conclusion based on the current situation out there that this is a needed and requested thing that the county commission enacts. So just to give you, I got a couple slides here I'm going to throw on the Elmo here. They would have been in your packet, but some of them are date sensitive and time sensitive, so we're just going to do it this way. So currently, if you can see, the drought monitor that was issued last week indicates that 98%, I think, of South Dakota in the lighter yellow is in a drought or abnormally dry. The darker yellow coming down from the northeast and spreading into central South Dakota would be the next step of drought that's out there. And you can see southeast South Dakota is not covered by that yet. But once again, this product is finished on a Tuesday and then comes out on a Thursday. So this would have came out last Thursday. The next product that you'll see in my discussion from the Weather Service is that area that is D1 or the darker yellow, kind of brownish, will expand, if not into entirely Minnehaha County, into very close proximity, and that's as a result of the lack of precipitation over the last couple of years. So another way that they use to show their message, you can see the darker indicated areas are kind of a long-term already drought conditions that we have, and then the yellow conditions, which matches up with the previous map, is what they're seeing once again in the drought outlook, that this area in eastern South Dakota, central South Dakota will develop drought conditions, and that's valid from March 31st for the entire month of April.
Lynn, what's the dark brown mean?
The dark brown is those are areas of the country that are already being impacted by significant drought. So California, the West, some of those areas. The next one is from a different source. They look at, this is from a wildland or interagency wildland source. And basically, for the month of April, they're predicting a significant wildland fire potential within the red area. Much of much of the Midwest that we see, all of South Dakota, all of Iowa, Minnesota, and obviously Minnehaha County is right in the middle of that. Once again, the rural fire chiefs work aggressively together to extinguish the threat, to not have the threat. Some of the things that they've done leading up to this request for the for the fire danger emergency is several weeks ago they enacted a automatic aid for grass fires, wildland fires. So typically on a day-to-day basis, if your house or your barn fires, you're going to get 2 or 3 departments that would automatically dispatch. Now we also have brought that into effect for grassland fires and wildland fires. However, because they're seeing that these small fires are quickly turning into something that they're unable to handle, so they need those additional resources many times coming sooner, and that'll help prevent the spread of these into other areas. The other thing that we're seeing, and I'll just have a couple pictures for you, is obviously every day in the last month the wind is blowing 30 miles an hour from either the north or the west, and that creates conditions that it's difficult for our volunteers to catch up to. This is last Thursday afternoon, a simple what would have been a building fire quickly turned into a rangeland grass fire up in the Garrettson area, and then spread it into trees, groves, and everything, something that you would see in a normal Minnehaha County rural residential area. It just is spreading it that fast because conditions are so dry. The other thing, like I said, is we're seeing normal day conditions resulting in grass fires. A couple weeks ago, we had just a gentleman out mowing his yard up in the river bottom between Baltic and Renner, and as a result of that, he hit a rock or something else, and that spark was enough to ignite the whole yard and a couple outbuildings. So those general day-to-day activities, because of the low humidities and the low moisture content and out in our community, are causing some significant issues also. So one of the other things, obviously it's raining, or it has been a little bit of rain the last couple days. We hope to see more, but this is the prediction, and the green line down here is the one you'd want to be centered on. So this morning, this is the prediction from the Weather Service about the amount of rain that we'll see from here through, I think, Thursday, Friday morning. And it's only about, if you add it up, about just under a half of an inch of rain. Because of the deficits that we're seeing and we have seen over the last several months and weeks, little or no snowpack going into the fall, a little abnormally dry, and then the predictions of a continued dry spring. The rural fire chiefs are still asking that this ban be put in place. Last night, the towns and townships met here. This was a point of discussion about the potential for a wildland fire or a burn ban within Minnehaha County, and they are certainly happy to, if to have a burn ban placed, or there was no opposition at that time, and the discussion was is if it takes a burn ban to get us 2 or 3 inches of rain, that's what we'll do, because they are seeing how short it is for moisture out there, and their needs as farmers and landowners and things like that, and they recognize the fact that their volunteer resources are scarce. Their volunteer resources are scarce, and they've been running the last several weeks just trying to put out and try to contain the smaller fires that we have. Not to mention some of these big ones that get going on windy days that often will take 4 or 5 departments to handle, just because there's a lack of volunteer resources out there during the day. From 9 in the morning until 4 o'clock, it's pretty difficult to get an entire crew of volunteers that can go out and get their neighbors and help their neighbors. So I'd be willing to answer any questions on any of the material that we've provided. How long it would last, obviously that depends on precip. One of the things that will help slow fire growth is if we get a half inch of rain here, that'll help with the green up process of the grasses that we have out there, and won't spread as fast, but we haven't seen that yet. So as a tool of last resort, the rural fire chiefs are recommending to the County Commission that you declare a fire danger emergency within Minnehaha County and prohibit open burning as it relates to MC 3404.
Questions for Lynn? Commissioner Kelly.
Lynn, is this taking a toll on fire departments' budgets?
I haven't heard that discussion from them yet, and I haven't heard of any of them having significant breakdowns within their equipment and those things, but that's something that we'll talk about next Wednesday night when we meet on our monthly meeting, and I can sure provide that if there's anything significant that it comes out of there.
Commissioner Barth.
I guess a couple of points. Last night you were asked about people who had scheduled burns with the fire department.
And we've had that discussion with our departments also, and the ordinance, as I understand it, prohibits all open burning within Minnehaha County except those within a container that can be prevented from spreading. And Kirsten can answer a little more, but that includes fire departments, and we've had that discussion with them. If you have a landowner that you're working with to burn CRP or some other type of thing, that would be prevented also. We're not going to get in the middle of only we can do it and that type of thing. It's either all or nothing, and they understand that, Commissioner.
Commissioner Barth.
You talk a little bit here about the fine of up to $200 and 30 days in jail. What if a fire got away from you and caused destruction? Potentially, you'd be liable for those.
Yep. There's also in most of these cases, if you're found liable, your neighbors or anyone else can come after you civilly, and that would be a matter of neighbors disagreeing with neighbors on how that works. But there is a potential of that civil action, and then a lot of times, too, you may get a bill from your rural fire department because it costs them money to come out and put your act of negligence or bring it back to an area that's much safer. So, and we've seen that in the last couple of weeks too.
Additional comments. Commissioner Bender.
Lynn, it's my understanding then that this ban stays in place until you come back to the commission and ask us to rescind?
Yep. So it would come in, and like I said, our group of volunteer firemen, we're Lincoln County and Minnehaha County are the only islands in a sea of red on the map indicating burn bans. Lincoln County, I know, is taking theirs up today. But yes, it would be enacted until I come back to the commission and request that that would be taken off, and that would be brought forth by a recommendation of the rural fire chiefs. So,
is this effective immediately?
As I understand it, Commissioner, yes.
So, Lynn, if we get an inch of rain this week, like the newscasters were forecasting yesterday, would we be lifting this again on Tuesday?
I don't think an inch is going to solve the problem, and I don't think the rural fire chiefs think an inch is going to solve the problem either, because what we've seen is it's just so dry out there, and typically you can just about gauge your clock that the dew is on, and any moisture that we have is on the plants when you wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 11 o'clock those finer fuels, those 1 hour fuels basically, as they term it in wildland fire discussion, they've dried out and they're ready to burn by then. So unless we get if we get that inch of rain, And then we see green up, all those plants and everything greening up, so the fire spread reduces significantly that way because of vegetation. Then I think those two combinations would bring back a recommendation to rescind the burn ban.
Commissioner Kelly.
I'd make a motion to the comment after that we declare a fire emergency in Minnehaha County, fire danger emergency in Minnehaha County, and prohibit open burning.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There is a second. Comments. Commissioner Kelly.
Just a comment. Last night, I don't believe there was any objection at all, and we had this room full of township supervisors. So if anybody could reflect any concern out there, they would have been. They had none.
Additional comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to declare a fire danger emergency with prohibiting open burns. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. You set out a press release, I guess.
Yep, so I'll work with the commission office, and they'll get out the press release. And just, like I said, a reminder to people, even when a dirt burn ban does come off, it is still extremely dangerous out there. And on all control burns, no matter what time of the year, we would remind people to call Metro Communications and inform them so we don't send a fire department out when we don't need to.
Linda, you want to clarify? There's a lot of people that like to have little bonfires in their backyard. Are these covered with the burn ban?
I'll defer to Kirsten on the little bonfires, but this is only in rural areas, and as long as that bonfire is in a screened-in area type of thing, I think Kirsten could help me answer that one. But
well, if sparks or material escape any container, you're liable for open burning if it spreads from there, so I'd be cautious.
Okay. I guess we'll move on to item number 12. Thank you, Lynn. Item number 12 is authorize the chairman to sign permanent private fiber optic utility easements between Minnehaha County and SDN Communications across the W.H. Lyons Fairgrounds. Ken.
Commissioners, we did receive a request from SDN Communications, who's working with Verizon. They are in the process of trying to improve and upgrade some cellular coverage within the city of Sioux Falls, and one of the areas that they designated that they would like to put some fiber optic cable as well as some small antennas is property located at the W.H. Lyons Fairgrounds. And that you will see on the attached map, and it's in yellow, is the proposed route of the fiber optics, and then there is marked in with, and it's kind of hard to see, but a little red dot is where they would place the antennas, which is on the north end of the fairgrounds. We've looked at this, we've had the easement properly surveyed for purposes of filing with the Register of Deeds office. They have prepared the easement document for signature, and we've reviewed this document with the fairgrounds, and they did not have any objections with it either, as well as it meets the legal requirements associated with the state's attorney's office. So the folks from SDN had hoped to be here today to answer any other questions you have about their project, but they sent me a note and indicated they would not be able to attend today, and so they're still asking that we proceed with granting the easement.
Okay. Are there any questions for Ken on this easement? Look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I have a question
Commissioner
for Kirsten. Kirsten, do you have any thoughts about this easement?
Yes, this is for a very narrow, specific purpose. This only allows the use of the land for the purpose that is set forth in it, and it's very specific what type of line it is as far as the utility is and what type of equipment can be on there. They're also charged with remedying any maintenance or any damage that's done, or putting the state of the land back in the same that it was when the project started. I don't have any concerns with the granting of this easement under those narrow circumstances.
Look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
A motion, is there a second? A motion and a second to authorize the chairman to sign a permanent fiber optic easement. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 13 is authorize the chairman to sign the following agreements between Minnehaha County and the Volunteers of America, deferred from March 31st, 2015. Ken McFarland, and I'm just going to let you go through each one, Ken, instead of me. I'm going to let you go through each one instead of me reading them and then you rereading them.
Okay. Commissioners, as I explained last week, and that we've had a collaboration and partnership agreement with VOA and 13 other counties in the southeast part of the state as it relates to our duties and responsibilities for providing both secure and non-secure detention services in our area. I will remind you again that the partnership agreement with the counties does expire on June 15th of this year. And one of the things that we've been doing with our partner counties through our process that we've been going through for the last few years is to identify projects and or opportunities to keep that partnership alive and to have our partner counties assist us in satisfying any debt service on any new construction projects that the partnership would agree to, particularly since we've been going through our juvenile detention alternative initiative, that the use of both secure and non-secure facilities has been changing drastically. And our plans, any future building plans, are designed to help recognize that shift in what we are doing. So what we've been trying to do until the Commission decides on which of those building options is one that they wish to pursue is to keep the partnership agreement alive. And what we've discussed is keeping that partnership alive for another 2 years under the same terms and conditions as have existed in the past. Part of that, again, goes to the agreements that we have with VOA for the non-secure part of our detention program. And I will remind you that the partner counties themselves have a tendency, in the past, have used the VOA facility to a much larger degree than what we have, which was a necessity for us in order, that was part of the agreement 20 years ago, in order to get the partner counties on board, is that they would have, and agree to pay for debt services, that they would have access to both those beds. Our agreements with VOA have a different expiration date, and I'm still trying to scratch my head and figure out why we did that. You know, back, we have the partner counties in June, but our VOA agreements are in April. But be that as it may, those agreements with VOA expire in April 15th of this year. There are 3 agreements that you have before you. One is the acknowledgement and the termination of the original collaboration agreement. As part of the partnership 20 years ago, we took title upon paying for some debt service and for some street assessment improvements out on the VOA facility on West 51st Street. And that we did that in order to have a guaranteed overflow bed capacity for non-secure beds. And that agreement requires us at the end of the 20-year period to turn that property back over to VOA for title. We deferred that last week primarily because you know, we had a roof repair issue that we needed to get resolved, and VOA was concerned that we get that done prior to the closing, which was being scheduled for April 13th. We have had roofers out there to take a look at it. We've been exchanging warranty documents just to make sure that there is no issue for us moving forward to transferring that building. The other 2 agreements are that we've had with VOA is the lease agreement for our non-secure facility at 908 Northwest Avenue, and a services agreement with VOA for performing services in that same facility. The lease agreement is it's the standard lease that we've had with them for a number of years. It just deals with building issues, etc. And we are proposing that be extended for another 2-year period, and that in order to coincide with what we're trying to do with holding together the partner counties and to ensure that we have continued access to the non-secure beds over at the 908 while the partnership figures out next steps as far as a new building project goes. The services agreement is also structured for 2 years to coincide again with the partnership and to allow access to those beds by our partner counties. And that in exchange for that, we get 3 free beds, and as part of our deal with them for having that agreement. Again, the reason that we chose 2 years in the beginning was because we figured that's how long it was going to take in order for us to figure out, as our 14 partner counties, which of the building options that we wanted to pursue as we move forward to a new generation of JDAI, and to, to give us time to select a project, to design, build, and satisfy whatever debt service we needed to do on that facility. I also want to remind you we have 2 separate agreements with VOA for 2 other programs that happen in the building. One is for the Evening Report Center and one is for the Reception Center. Those 2 agreements are by separate agreement, and that was because we did those as pilot projects in order to manage the effectiveness of the program, and then you as commissioners get to decide whether or not those programs are worth continuing funding in those locations. So that's the history and the background of it. I know there are some concerns about perhaps the term of the agreement, but the recommendation that I'm making to you is that we sign the agreements to keep the partnership as it is for the next 2 years under the same terms and conditions as we've operated under, with the hope that we can define a building project for the future and move forward. So thank you. And I'm available for any questions.
Let's do them one at a time. We'll do item number A. Acknowledgement and compliance with the termination of the original collaboration agreement dated April 11, 1995 between Minnehaha County and the VOA, or was originally the Turning Point. Are there any questions for Ken on item number A?
I will add, Commissioner, I'm sorry. If we get an authorization to sign that, it's our intent to have that agreement signed at the closing, which is scheduled for Monday the 13th, in order to transfer title back to the building.
Are there any questions for Ken on item number A? Commissioner Benega?
Ken, can you give us kind of a summary of the number of participants that we had that were secured versus non-secured 20 years ago and what they are today?
I can.
And then also tell us a little bit about the average number of people we have in the evening report facility and the reception center?
I can do that. And that, when we originally started the partnership agreement, it was under a different set of circumstances as far as how the county shared in the provision of debt service. And that back then it was based upon the total number of juveniles that were aged between, I believe it was 10 and 18, and that who would be, quote, subject to the catchment area, as it were, with the services that we were providing. When we went through those numbers back then, and there was no provision at that time in order to change those numbers in the joint powers agreement between the counties. But Minnehaha County at that time had about 50% of the kids. And then the other 13 counties then split that remaining 50% and and the percentage just works out, you know, some of the counties were like 2%, but they split the remaining 50%. In the new process that we're going through, all of the counties have agreed that that formula did not work, and that it was a bad formula. It doesn't meet the true needs of what's happening, and it certainly didn't meet the needs of what we saw when we, to our neighbors to the south, you know, Lincoln County, with the kind of growth that they've had. So the formula that we've devised that's in the proposed joint powers agreements with the partner counties moving forward will be a formula based on actual bed usage. And what we've done is take, during the last 5 years, is we've taken their number of bed days that they've used, both secure at the JDC and non-secure at VOA, to develop a bed count for those usage. And what we're going to do, and then that then has determined what is the percentage. Our preliminary numbers are showing at this time that Minnehaha County uses about 71% of the beds that are used between both facilities, both secure and non-secure, and then the other 13 partner counties split the remaining 29%. What we will do going forward is that every year it's proposed that whatever building project you end up choosing, whatever the debt service amount is, when we calculate those yearly contributions, it's going to be based upon the last 5 years. And so there will be times when we'll drop a year, and we're going to add a year. And that's how we'll do it going forward. So those percentages will change as we move forward. based on a county's actual use. Now, what that does for us is that we have counties that are low population but are high use, like Charles Mix, and it will recognize that fact based on when they used the facility.
I don't think we answered the question.
No.
I thought I did.
No, I think
About
we're
the
looking for
percentage.
the amount of kids that we used to have before
Now.
this was maybe 60 to 70 kids.
Oh, okay.
And the amount of kids we have now in Minnehaha County is maybe 13
Well,
total,
we're
and
actually-
sometimes less than that.
Yeah, less than that. I mean, when we started the JDAI project, and this is not 20 years ago, but just the JDAI project, our average daily population was slightly over 40 kids a day. Our last statistics that we show in secure detention is that we're now at about 13 per day. And in some of the conversations I've had with both Aaron and Jamie, our numbers in the last month have dropped off even way lower than that.
Ken, how many?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say how many kids do we have in shelter care, because that's secure. So what do we have in shelter care currently?
And that right now we have contracts that give us 3, and then we've been averaging, and correct me if I'm wrong,
He said 5.
maybe 4 or 5 a day.
And is that just Minnehaha County kids?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Benega, did you have an additional question?
No, you took the words out of my mouth.
Okay. Commissioner
Can I-
Bender.
I just want to, as a point of clarification, the joint powers agreement that you were referencing and the whole formula between the counties, that's not an agreement that's before us.
It is not, because one of the things that we've done with one of the things that we've asked from our partner counties as we go forward, we've briefed them on the status of all these agreements and where we're at, and then our desire to hold the partnership together until such time as that they help us to define what is the building project going forward to best meet our bed needs based on JDAI. And so we've asked them to, and we've provided them with various cost scenarios and based on their bed usage, and we've asked them to provide us letters simply stating, does your county wish to continue the partnership agreement past 2 years past the June date until we come up with a partner agreement, a new agreement? And we've received notices from about half of them that indicated that they want to go forward and keep the partnership together.
Okay, Commissioner Bender.
And so that's an agreement that you anticipate you'll come back to the commission
Yes.
sometime
In
in June?
Yes.
Okay.
Before then, hopefully.
Commissioner Kelly.
A lot of our partner counties did not have JDAI until, July 1 this year when it'll go into effect?
Our partner counties and that have not been subject to some of the things we're doing with JDAI, particularly as it goes with the risk assessment instrument that determines who gets into secure detention primarily and how you're diverted to alternatives. That's going to change July 1. The Chief Justice Office has issued an order that all judicial jurisdictions across the state come July 1 will use that risk assessment instrument in order to govern their intakes into the system.
So, and the basic reason for going from 40 to 13 is JDAI.
I'm sorry?
The basic reason for the change, the drop, has been the JDAI and the alternative
Yes.
Yes.
sentencing.
To answer your other question about the other agreements, the Evening Report Center and the Reception Center. When we originally started the Evening Report Center and Reception Center, they were both pilot projects, and we're really still in the process of evaluating those numbers. The Evening Report Center was originally set up to house about 7-8 kids a day in that program. We're only averaging about 3, quite frankly. And then so we have had recent discussions on those about what the impact of those programs are, what we can do to tweak them. One of the things that you will see when you come in budget time, we have sent VOA the applications for funding those 2 programs, and those are some decisions that you'll get to make and look at too during the budget hearing process as you review the effectiveness in those 2 programs and whether or not you want to continue funding them with some tweaks. The Reception Center was designed for low-level offenders a lot of people come, kids primarily coming out of the schools that needed a place that they could be removed from the schools, not come into the JDC system, still be reunited with parents, and perhaps offered some services as well. That one, we've been averaging about a kid a day is all that's been there. And, so that's another program that we want to try and beef up, and we've had conversations with the schools and with the police department and others about that program and how we continue it. The one thing I have gotten from our conversation, and I think Commissioner Heiberger will reiterate that, is that the advisory group and the folks that are dealing with it, the police, the school district people, they absolutely want to keep a reception center. They just think it's an important component of what we do, and it's got to be available. But we do have work to do to beef up those numbers.
Commissioner Bender, did you have a question?
As a point of clarification, I was not sure whether you wanted to take these agreements one at a time. So you're looking for a motion on this?
On the first one.
On the first.
Yeah. Okay. Are we ready for a motion on the first one?
My understanding is there's really not much debate that the terms have been complied with and that legally we're obligated to turn that building over. So I would make a motion to approve the acknowledgement and compliance with termination of the original collaboration agreement.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second on item A. Any other comments?
Just the second.
Dick did. Is there any other comments, Commissioner?
Well,
Benega?
Mr. McFarland was raising his hand in the process, so I think we need to hear what he's got to say.
Commissioners, I just want to point out that collaboration agreement, though, does specifically refer to other agreements expiring and new agreements coming online, so they are tied a little bit, and I just wanted you to know that.
Ken, can you elaborate as to how they're tied together?
Sure. Let me call it up. If you refer to under the Part B of the acknowledgement agreement, it does reference the 908 lease and the 1996 services contract terminating on April 15th.
Okay, so
there is a reference to those documents terminating, and that they also, if I'm not mistaken, one moment. Under Part D, Section 3, they talk about not only those leases doing, but they say at the closing, county and VOA have to enter into the new written lease agreement for 908 and the services agreement for VOA for the provision of short-term shelter care program services. So there is a connection between the documents going forward.
Sure. Pass it to Jane. She thinks she's looking online. Did you want to copy that?
Do you have that?
I've got it online. I'm fine. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Ken on item number A? Kirsten, did you have a comment?
And just to be clear, the legal effect of this is if you authorize this one in subsection A, that once the closing goes forward as contemplated by this, those old leases are gone. Now, it says there's an intent to enter into new ones, right, but just the actual legal immediate effect is those old ones are gone at that point, just so everyone's clear on what this actually does by its current terms.
Yes.
Any other comments? I have a motion and a second on the table to acknowledge the termination of the original corroboration of agreement and turn over the building VOA.
And again, that's the 51st Street facility.
Right, 51st. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, item number 2, B, is a 2-year lease agreement between Minnehaha County and VOA at 908 North West Avenue, Sioux Falls. Comments?
I'll make that motion.
I have a comment, discussion.
I don't see a second at this time, so we're going to go to discussion. Dick, Commissioner Bender, excuse me.
I've had a number of conversations with Ken about this lease agreement, and obviously this is a very complicated issue, and I've been trying to get as much background as I can to try to understand all the different moving pieces. My concern with the lease agreement and the services agreement is the term and then some of the costs associated with that. It appears to me that we've had 20 years to kind of figure out what's happening next, and my concern is if we enter into a 2-year lease agreement that we just kick the can down the road and it's easy to ignore until we come up to the next deadline. I don't think that this is a long-term solution for the county. I haven't really talked to anybody who thinks this is a long-term solution to the county. And I would be in favor of doing a shorter term lease that gives us more flexibility to possibly renegotiate the terms of the lease or make other decisions going forward. But I'm not comfortable tying the county's hands for 2 more years with a program that nobody seems to think is the future.
Additional comments. Commissioner Benega?
I would agree with Commissioner Bender. The way we do business now is not even close to what it was 20 years ago. And if you look at the numbers, they're dramatically different. We're looking for alternative kinds of opportunities with JDAI. The June risk assessment process may change it even more. I really think that what we paid for, if you will, was excess beds back 20 years ago. And we have plenty of excess beds. They may not be in the right location. They may not be the right kind, either secured or non-secured. But I think that this whole process is evolving as we have pursued JDAI in multiple chapters of what's been put out there. And I think another big step is going to be in June. So I'm not in favor of going into a long-term agreement.
Could I respond?
Commissioner Ken, excuse me.
Commissioners, again, and that one of the options that we've looked at in building options, and we've actually got 7 of them that we've looked at during the time, and we are in the process of bringing those forward to the commission in a final report. You've seen bits and pieces of it through the years as we've explored different options, but we're in the process of putting that all concisely in one report that you can view that also along with the partner counties. One of the options that's out there is a remodel of the 908 facility for shelter care beds. And that everyone agrees that the current configuration out there is not ideal, and it needs to change subject to JDAI. The point, though, I wish to make is that when we've had our discussion with the partner counties, and we've had our discussions with you folks, quite frankly, and that I think everybody's of the realization that to do a proper evaluation of all the options that are out there is going to take at least another 2 years in order to, by the time you pick an option, by the time you get the necessary contracts into place, the debt service, etc., and regardless of the option that you pick, there will be a new agreement, both with the joint cooperative agreement with the partner counties, and quite frankly, there may be new agreements with DOA, and I don't want to, but they may not be part of the new option. But the point is, with JDAI, we will have an ever greater reliance on the need for those non-secure beds. And while there are other programs out there that we are important and we need to pay attention to, I don't think we can lose the focus that the primary reason that we're trying to keep this together for 2 years is to have those non-secure beds available. And those non-secure beds, I think, with the RAI coming in July 1, you're going to use them even more. Now, I understand, and I somewhat agree with your contention that is 2 years too long? Do we need to hold the feet to the fire? And I would be willing to do anything in order to help further this decision. And that because it is an extremely important decision as we move forward in how we do juvenile services in this county with JDAI. One of the things I might suggest to you, based on the conversation I'm hearing at this table, is that have a 2-year agreement, but provide for the quarterly reviews and that in there in order to keep the project moving. But like I said, we've invested a lot of time and a lot of effort, had a lot of discussion on this in order to keep the partnership together under the same terms and conditions at least for another 2 years. And again, I want to, with all due respect, we've been working on this for a lot longer than 2 years. And we just haven't been able to come to an agreement on what the future is going to look like because, quite frankly, we have a whole lot of other balls in the air. And that with other building projects that we haven't been able to come up with an agreement, and now we're pressed for time. And that's the reason, and I would just respectfully ask you to consider that. And if that's an option to throw in the quarterly review within the term of the agreement, I think maybe that might be a solution.
I'm not concerned about keeping the partners together because I think Ken is, but I think that at our meetings they have all strongly expressed their interest in being partners with us going forward because we're like an insurance policy to them for their shelter care beds. And this is about shelter care beds, and we do need a place for shelter care beds.
Do.
Commissioner Kelly.
Well, one thing we don't know yet, and we'll learn, is what the effect on the other counties is going to have with the JDAI. It's had such a significant effect here, and the risk assessment, when they start doing it, may change that Charles Mex deal altogether. On the other hand, they don't have facilities like we have here in Sioux Falls to do some of the other alternative items. And I'm not afraid of a 2-year extension because just watching, I think this has been going on since before I came on the commission. And so 2 years in that time frame to determine what we're going to do with the existing JDC, how we're going to change it, whether we're going to take over the program for the report center type thing. None of those questions are answered yet. And I assume you're going to come back at some point near or close that we'll have what the alternatives we have to do. Because we still got a building project and everything else, whether it's remodel or whether it's a new building.
Commissioner Bennigan?
Ken, you're going to be bringing us a budget in about 6 weeks or a little longer. What is that budget going to say about the evening report center and reception center, and how long do we continue with our agreement with, frankly, all the changes that are going on with JDAI?
We have kicked out the funding applications to VOA for both of those programs, and so we expect that they will be back. They're due back by the end of April, and that I will tell you that, and I've made no bones about it in partnership meetings and with the counties, and I know VOA. We've had these same conversations. Is that we are concerned with the numbers on those programs, and that we cannot continue to have this kind of money going towards those programs with these little numbers. And so, do I think that those agreements will probably have to be tweaked? Absolutely. But we have separate agreements with those two programs in order to do that. And I think that's the appropriate place to deal with those, is in those separate agreements for those programs. My biggest concern at this juncture still remains the access to those non-secure beds. And I'm afraid that with the Ray coming online, that our use of the non-secure beds, not only by us, but our partner counties, is going to go up instead of going down. I mean, the new reality of JDAI as we move forward is not going to be secure beds. It's just not. It's going to be non-secure beds. It's going to be alternative programming and the spaces for those alternative programming. That's what the space is going to show on any building project going forward. We're in the process right now in the report. In fact, we're meeting on Friday to finalize some numbers, and to talk about, here are the cost options for each of these. Here is the debt service for these. Here's our estimated operational cost for these, whether or not it's going to be through a contract, whether it's going to be through us taking bed revenues. All of that will be there on all of those options. And that so, but again, it's something, like you pointed out before, Commissioner Benninga, that it's a process we need to walk through with our partner counties in order to get them on board with whatever project we're going to go forward to in the future.
No questions or comments?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
question for Commissioner Benninga. So are you thinking then that by having this shorter time frame, it would spur us into more rapid action?
I think we need to do something different because the program is completely different. And 2 years from now, if we don't want to be doing the same thing we're doing currently, so why are we, if there's so much uncertainty on what those numbers are going to be like, I think we move it one piece at a time, and that probably means a quarterly, not only a review, but a quarterly renewal, if you will, on the agreement, rental agreement. And I'm not worried about the other counties, frankly, because I think they're all going to be on board. They have no other solutions. We will find out, frankly, as we move on, what those numbers are going to be, and why make a big investment in something that we frankly don't think is going to be there 2 years from now.
Additional comments? Commissioner Kelly.
What's the investment?
Continuing to operate a program at a different level than we probably need to.
Well, right now you say there's 4 to 5 in the non-secure.
For us.
Yeah.
That not including our partner counties. When we take a look at the actual bed use that's been out there, and that I think our latest numbers show, VOA is operating a 32-bed shelter facility out at 908, and that they keep those 32 beds pretty full because that's what they need for operational efficiencies. The partner counties typically use, including us, about 16, 17 of those beds on any given day. Is what the value of those beds are to the partnership.
But the dollars coming out of the county then just address what we're using. Is that correct?
The dollars coming out of the county, we have always operated under the past 20 years. We've operated under the concept of facility for program. VOA takes and assumes the risk of the cost of operating those beds and making sure that they're staffed 24/7. So they assume that cost. And then they also take, though, the revenue that comes in from it. Now, historically, what we've done is we've gotten our three beds, and that doesn't cost us extra to have those. And then anything above 3, then we pay for the daily rate. Quite frankly, we haven't used, our 3 free beds until fairly recently, when we've really put an emphasis on JDAI and really started using those non-secure beds more.
Is
Commissioner
VOA
Heiberger.
going to address us? Excuse me.
Yeah, Commissioner Bender.
Ken, I just want to clarify. You keep saying they're free beds, but actually the rental value
That's
of the
correct.
building that we provide to them for $1 makes those actually fairly costly beds to the county.
I agree. But again, one of the reasons that we did that back then was in order to, because most of our beds a lot of those non-secure beds were being used by the partner counties, and so having the access to those beds, and that was real important to get our partner counties to even be part of the joint powers agreement in the first place, to assume their share of debt service for other construction costs. So, I'm urging you, you can't just look at 908 as just something that's benefiting Minnehaha County. These are beds that are benefiting our partnership agreement and the agreements that we made with those counties to participate and to pay us money for the last 20 years.
We own the building. We get $1 for rent, and probably 20 years ago maybe that worked, but the rent has gone up, the cost of the beds has gone up, and it's definitely we're giving a charitable donation to VOA to let them run out of our business, or run out of our building, and have 3 free beds. That's really where it comes to it. And maybe that's a good deal, and maybe it's not. Commissioner Kelly.
Do we have any expenses on the 908 building? Do we pay anything?
We do
keep it
have
up.
a line item in our budget where we're responsible under the terms of the lease for the major building component.
Like a
things.
roof or something like that?
Like the roof and, a heating system. But for the day-to-day maintenance of the facility, that's VOA's cost.
I mean, I guess I still struggle with where the investment is, because we're using the 3 free beds. And what I wonder is are VOA people going to address us?
Well, there are
Yeah, I
some
know they're
folks
here. We're
from
still having
VOA.
discussions, so I will give them an opportunity. Anybody ready for VOA?
Sure.
Do you have any comments, John? Or
I'm sorry, what was the question, please?
there was no question. Do you have any comments?
Well, one question may
Okay.
be,
Commissioner
what would be the effect of an ongoing month-to-month lease as opposed to a 2-year lease on new
Well, the
people?
biggest effect is and I'm John Hart. I'm Managing Director for Volunteers of America Dakotas. And actually, we're a part of the development of the agreement 20 years ago. It would be impossible to do business under those type of arrangements, simply because should an agreement, let's say on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, is reviewed and you decide not to renew the lease, then for us to find an alternative location to move everything, to give notice to all the staff associated with that program, it'd just be impossible to operate under those kind of circumstances. So if honestly, if it's the choice of operating on a month-to-month lease or even on a quarterly lease or something like that, we'd probably have to take a real serious look at our ability to even do that.
Thank you.
Can I have a question for? So what kind of flexibility do you think you have? Do you think, because clearly you have more flexibility than a 2-year lease, so what would you think would be the longest term that would give you the flexibility that you need to run the program without something shorter than a 2-year lease?
At a bare minimum, I think a 2-year lease, and that's why, in the discussions with Ken, and a 2-year lease would be ideal, because then also it does give us time, because we're going to have to plan, okay, what's going to happen at the end of that 2 years, assuming that we may not be there. Finding alternative locations, once you find those locations, making any renovations to those locations, and making any adaptations to program or staffing accordingly. If that were shortened up to a year, we would really have to accelerate, because if we were being told that there's a potential for you being out of that location April of 2016, we would have to very actively try to secure another location for the services, thinking we may not be at that location, make the renovations necessary, so that even then, if you were to come back to us, let's say 60 days, 90 days prior to the end of that first year, and say, well, we would like to extend that, we would probably be way far down that road. We will have to find another location to relocate. Does that answer your question, hopefully?
Mm-hmm. How many programs do you have out there that you would have to relocate?
We have the shelter care program, or non-secure program. We have the evening report, the reception center, and then we have day services for our intellectual and developmental disabilities programs.
So that day services program is the only program that's not county related or county funded program?
Correct.
And how many employees and how many people do you serve out there in that program?
Employees, we probably have 20 employees there, and serve probably 100 individuals. In those other county programs, another 25 to 30 employees.
Okay.
Additional questions for John?
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay. I have a motion on the table, but no second. The original motion was to approve the 2-year lease between Minnehaha County and VOA.
Madam Chair, if I may ask what your opinion is.
I still don't think a 2-year agreement is necessary. I didn't from the beginning, but Ken has made a good argument. But I think that a shorter agreement is not unrealistic.
Well, if we could get a second or get a new motion or something, but then we can start doing the commission discussion, I think, and decide whether, where we're at.
So is there a second or is there a substitute motion? Is there, Commissioner Benega?
I will make a substitute motion, and frankly, I'm not convinced yet that changes can't be made in a shorter period of time than 2 years, because they're making adjustments currently with the number of participants that they're dealing with. So I would make a motion for a 6-month lease with probably a 90-day notice for termination, which could come anytime during that 6 month or at the very end of 6 months, or we could renew it for another 6 months.
Is there a second to the substitution motion? Is there a second to the substitute motion?
For discussion, I'll second it, but
Okay.
I guess I would ask our department head out there what his thoughts are. With Jamie, that
Jamie,
is.
did you have comments on the substitute motion of a 6-month lease with a 90-day notice with the 6-month extensions?
Jamie Drabbit, Director, JDC. To answer an earlier question about the use of non-secure beds in the future, currently with the intake process, our partner counties call, and they have use to our detention center because VOA is usually full, does not have those out-of-county beds available for them. So on a delinquency case, we're taking them into detention. In the near future, when they score on that RAE for non-secure beds, we won't have them. So I think that we need to continue, I would say at minimum a year. 6 months doesn't, they're going to start looking elsewhere. They're going to get out of the business, and we're going to be in a world of hurt. So I think at minimum you got to give them the year so that they can prepare for their business and still stay in the ballgame with us. We need those beds, and I think we're going to need them a lot more come July 1st.
Commissioner Benega.
Jamie, what were you going to budget for next year?
I was waiting for those contracts to come back from VOA. I think there are some changes that need to be made to especially the evening report center. The reception center, I think the numbers have been going up from what I've heard from police officers, and I haven't checked the latest numbers on them, but they're using a lot more. The police are changing their intake, the way they do intake with us. They're changing their policy. It hasn't been finalized yet, but one of the main things that they're going to be using is going direct to the reception center without doing an intake call to us, which is an option that they've had for a while, that it's starting to become more of a policy for them. So I see the reception center increasing day to day. The evening report center, I think it has a lot to do with our current judge and her philosophy, which could change as she's longer on the bench, and it could change again in 18 months when we have a different judge. But we're not seeing the intake calls coming in like we have in the past. Because the police are changing the way they do things. They're releasing kids straight away without calling us or taking them to the reception center. And we're seeing the calls that we should be seeing, the more serious crimes, the serious assaults, the rape, murder, armed robbery, grand theft. So we're seeing the right kids, and we want to serve them at the right place at the right time. And right now we need shelter care at VOA to serve them at the right place at the right time.
Commissioner Bender first.
Jamie, I'm concerned about a statement you made at the beginning. You said that when kids come in from other counties right now, they're being turned away from VOA because there's not enough beds available?
Currently, they're running at capacity, and if there's no beds available in their delinquent child, they're coming to my detention facility even if I know they wouldn't score for secure detention on the RAE. We're not completing the RAE at the risk assessment inventory on out-of-county kids right now other than Lincoln County. Come July 1st, we'll be completing that RAE on every kid that we get a call on.
And what happened? I mean, nothing in these agreements is going to change the number of beds out there. So how are you addressing that issue?
My concern is that we won't have anyone available to provide those beds for us. If you look at a 6-month agreement, John's already told you that it'd be hard to do it at 1 year. At 6 months, they might withdraw and say we're not even interested. So then what do we do with non-secure kids? I have 6 non-secure beds that I can use for 24 hours in my building. So if they're full and they're a delinquent child, I'm using those 6 beds for 24 hours until I can get things shuffled around to get them somewhere.
And a lot of times they're full because they've taken other kids from DOC or some other place, and that's what's filling those beds?
They take DOC kids. They have some DSS kids there as well. They also the partner counties are using those beds, and they're filling them up.
Commissioner Kelly?
Well, yeah, my concern on 6 months is that BOA, if they're concerned about this, and given the conversation we've had today, they would have to begin right now looking for an alternative. This is a unique facility in that there would be some zoning issues. There might be some NIMBY issues in it, plus what they acquire. And I don't like kicking the can down the road any more than anybody else does. But in this case, and I think with the recommendations we've had from staff, I think 2 years gives us a hard time frame. And I know we've been messing around with this thing. I mean, we knew April 15 was coming up, and still didn't get it done. But I think in fairness to VOA, and I think in fairness to the whole, so we can look at this program correctly, because we may end up with the non-secure, and we may end up in an arrangement at the existing facility that takes care of both, or we may find that this is the best way to go. But I don't think anybody's made that decision yet. I think staff has told us that they would like to see a 2-year. We can do a quarterly or a semi-annual report on this thing, so that the commission's made aware of where it's going. But I will not support 6 months.
Commissioner, just for a point of clarification on the beds, there are 32 beds out there in that. We've always had the arrangement, our partner counties and our shelter care beds take priority. They keep their beds full because they have to in order to make the efficiencies. What Jamie was referring to on a delinquent is that we may have a delinquent kid that might not score high enough typically to be in detention. It's still a delinquent offense, which makes them, could be eligible to be in the detention center. A lot of the beds that we talk about are kids for chins, child in need of supervision. And when we have those situations and we need a bed at VOA, some other organization then they have to boot a kid and move a kid because our chins take priority over there. So I mean, we have priority use of those 6 of those beds, and that for our partner counties. They just have to keep them full, and that in order to make their efficiencies work.
Commissioner Barth?
Ken, Jamie, Aaron, somebody, what do we have to do in the next 2 years, if it's 2 years, so that this will work? What do we have to do in the next 6 months if we go with the 6-month plan? I mean, what needs to happen so that we're ready to transition away from what we got now?
We have, a lot of the groundwork, and we've done, we have done a lot of work to prepare for this eventuality. We've looked at a number of different building options that a lot of you have been involved with, and that as far as when we look at, we've compiled this information into one concise report, and that it's not done yet. I mean, as we review it, we think of other things that need to be in. A good question came up here just the other day from Commissioner Bender, and that she wanted to know for each of the building options, at least this is what was communicated to us, what is the cost per 1,000 for a homeowner. So we're rolling that information into the report. What has to happen is that the commission, as long as in our partner counties and our whatever partners that we, our nonprofit partners, we need to look at these options, look at the pros and cons of each of the options, because we'll have all the information there, and quite frankly, commit to one, so that then we can start the process of doing the planning for it. And when we ask you to commit, not only you, but our partner counties, that will have all the information there. What's it going to cost me per year? What is our bed use per year? What's the estimated operational cost per year, and how do we split that? Where does those dollars come from? That's what we've got in the report. It's just simply you have to pick one so that we can move forward. And we've got recommendations, basically from what we've seen and on our experience, but we don't get to make that call.
Additional questions? I think we're kind of questioned out. We have a substitute motion on the table for a 6-month lease with a 90-day notice with a 6-month extension. I have a motion and a second on that.
And can I get some clarification on the motion here? What you're saying is the same agreement except a change in terms, 6 months terms, and at least 90 days notice to not auto-renew. Is that what the intent of the commission is? Because I just want to clarify that, because we're going to be reducing that to writing.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. I have a motion. Did you have a comment, Commissioner Barth?
Yeah, at this point, I don't think I'll support the motion. I second it. I think we probably are not going to be able to make these decisions in 6 months, and so I think I will support the 2 years.
Okay. Roll call vote. Commissioner Barth?
No.
Bender?
No.
Benega?
Yes.
Kelly?
No.
Highriver?
Yes. Motion fails 3-2. I would look for another substitute motion, or I would look for a second on the original motion, which was a 2-year agreement with Minnehaha County and VOA.
I'd make a substitute motion to have a 1-year lease with a 90-day notice provision.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second substitute motion for a 1-year lease with a 90-day notice with a renewal. Do you want to say that again? Automatic renewal.
An automatic 1-year renewal unless a 90-day notice is given.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Excuse me. Tell me again on the renewal and the 90
It'd be a 1-year lease. If we elect not to renew it, we have to give notice 90 days before the expiration of the 1 year. And
Otherwise, it's an automatic.
otherwise, it automatically renews for another year.
With a review. Do we have a 90-day review in that, or no? That's what it is. That's a 90-day. Okay. Sorry.
Just
Go ahead,
clarify
Commissioner
that.
Kelly.
It's a 1-year lease with an automatic renewal, but if we give a 90 days prior to 2016, that we're not going to renew.
Yeah, the lease would commence on April 16th, 2015, and would automatically renew on April 15th, 2016, unless we'd given notice 90 days before that date.
I can support that.
Okay. Commissioner, who seconded that motion?
Jeff.
I think Jeff did. Yes, Jeff did. Commissioner Benega?
Question, do we get quarterly reviews on the
That's what I was
information that
looking
needs
for.
to be provided on what the population is and where we're at in these steps? Because frankly, I'm a little concerned about that.
Aaron? Aaron, you want to identify yourself?
Good morning. I prepare quarterly reports.
Identify.
Yeah, you have to tell us who you are.
Aaron Surskett, JDI coordinator with Minnehaha County. I prepare a quarterly presentation on the use of our alternatives and detention every quarter for the past 3 years. I'm actually working on a template to have it in a report fashion within the next week, but I have the data in a presentation format for you at any time.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a motion and a second on the table for a 1-year lease. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Barth?
Aye.
Bender?
Aye.
Benega?
Aye.
Kelly?
All right.
Heiberger.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. The next one is item number C, is a 2-year service agreement between Minnehaha County and VOA for short-term shelter care and other related services. Discussion, a motion.
I'll make a motion to do the same as we did with item B.
Okay.
1 year with a 90-day
Notice.
notice.
Yep. Okay, I have a motion for a 1-year contract with a 90-day notice
And automatic otherwise.
and automatic renewal.
Second.
There's a second. Any other comments or questions? Roll call vote.
Barth,
Aye.
Bender,
Aye.
Benega,
Yes.
Kelly,
Aye.
Heiberger.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 14, consider a motion to approve request from the Public Defender's Office to participate in the Gideon's Promise Law Students Partnership Program and authorize signature to the program agreement. Tracy Smith. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning. I'm here today to ask the Commission to move forward in giving us authority to enter into a fellowship agreement with Gideon's Promise and the University of Oregon School of Law, allowing us to hire one fellow, a new law graduate, through the program for 1 year. As you can see through the contract, which each of you should have a copy of, through the contract, the University of Oregon would contribute $24,000 toward the salary of the lawyer. Gideon's Promise would provide 3 years of education and training through their Core 101 training program. I previously appeared in front of the Commission and presented information regarding the Gideon's Promise Law School Partnership Program, and at that time the Commission authorized me to move forward but wanted more information regarding the actual employment relationship between the fellow and the county. After consultation with Commissioner Bender, we have formulated the agreement, which I believe addresses several concerns that the Commission had initially regarding the initial nature of the fellowship agreement, particularly one, ensuring pay parity between employees in our office, deputy public defenders, and the work that the fellow would be doing, which would be similar work but a substantially lower amount that the University of Oregon was willing to pay the fellow. I admit initially I had told the Commission that there would be no cost to Minnehaha County through the partnership agreement. However, I am modifying my initial request and asking for approval to temporarily hire the fellow as a full-time deputy public defender, and that is not what I initially had asked for. And I am asking to supplement the $24,000 grant that the law school is willing to contribute towards the fellow's salary, excuse me, and asking to authorize us to use personnel funds from our public defender budget so to match the fellow's salary, bringing up that fellow's salary to equal the deputy public defender's salary so that they would be on equal pay once they start. I believe that the fellow would start around mid-July and that there would be 11 pay periods remaining in the year. The supplemental cost from our budget for the remainder of the year would be approximately $13,000, depending on the amount of benefits that the person would ask for. We don't know what that would be. It could be as high as $20,000. When you consider the cost, however, of a full-time deputy public defender and the cost of the county for that salary, I still think that would be a significant cost savings to the county when you figure out a full-time lawyer. I am not asking for an additional position at this time. I'm only asking that this position be temporary. Given our experience with turnover in the last 5 years, I do believe that although this wasn't authorized in our 2015 budget, I believe that If you look at over the last 5 years, our experiences with our payroll budget, I do believe that we would still have the cost savings at the end of the year within our payroll budget to meet the additional cost that this would have. Our intent would be to, within the budget cycle that we're going through right now for 2016, to one, either ask that this be made a permanent position at 2016 if our caseloads show that we would need a permanent position, and then recruit for this position. If we were not authorized an additional position for 2016, my intent would be to backfill for this position, through attrition based on turnover. As I indicated last time when I appeared in front of the commission, I've thoroughly enjoyed working with Gideon's Promise over the last few years. In addition to having the opportunity now through this program to recruit some of the best attorneys from some of the best law schools in the country, we would have the significant cost savings of not having to pay from our own education and training budget for the cost of sending that person to training for the next 3 years. And we would have the opportunity to work with the faculty from Gideon's Promise, from faculty that's also part of some of the best law schools in the country as well. Available for questions.
Other questions for Tracy?
I have two.
Commissioner Kelly.
Tracy, in your 2016 budget you'll present to us pretty soon, will you have that additional salary included in that budget?
Yes.
So you will be asking for more money next year?
The way that the law school is proposing in the contract, as you can see, is they are proposing that the $24,000 would be divided up for $12,000 to be delivered August 1st of 2015, the other $12,000 to be distributed on February 1st of 2016. So as part of my budget, I would again ask.
As I understood, you won't ask for a supplement in 15 because you'll make it up through your attrition vacancy cost or expenses, right?
Correct.
So is that the same thing you're going to do in 16?
I would do it the proper way and actually request the additional salary.
So there'll be an additional budget request in 16 for this position?
Yes.
And then the second question is, you say you're going to make it up without a supplement this year. Are you going to come? Are you saying that 15 will not have any supplements for the public defender's office?
No, I will not ask for a supplement in our payroll, but I don't know if we will need a supplement. Like with experts in our mental health evaluations, it's too early in the year.
Well, even within the payroll account, you will not be asking for a supplement, or you will not be asking to move things from operational to payroll in?
I don't know at this time.
And how will we know,
I understand what you're asking. If we'll ask to move additional costs from our payroll budget to supplement operational costs at the end of the year. At this time, it's too early in the year to know. A lot of that depends on how many murder trials we have in the year. One murder trial can upset our entire budget, and it's only April. So I can't give you that assurance at this time.
Commissioner Bender.
Well, I have one follow-up question on that, but my understanding is that you believe that there will be enough attrition in your office that you won't actually need, that you can basically cover a position that you lose through attrition, that this person will fill in that gap for you.
I do.
Okay. And the other clarification that I just wanted to make, based on the memo or letter that you provided to us, is that you'd indicated that there'd be no cost for the Gideon's training, which I believe is true from the agreement, but that the county will be responsible for any travel expenses incurred in connection with that training.
Yes, you're correct. We did learn that we would have to pay for the cost of her flight depending on when she starts, which we don't know yet what her start date is, but we worked out in the contract, which as long as she's an employee of the county, we would have to incur the cost of sending her to the training program, which would be her travel expenses, her flight.
Any additional questions for Tracy on this? Seeing none, I would look for a motion.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A motion and a second to approve. We lost Commissioner Barth. Is he coming back?
He ain't coming back.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the Gideon's contract for a one-year internship program. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same side. Motion passes 3-1 with the absence of Commissioner Barth. Item number 15 is a consider a bid award for project MC 1417, grading, riprap, and miscellaneous repairs to drainage structures throughout Minnehaha County. Bids opened on April 1st. DJ Boothie. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. DJ Boothie, Highway Superintendent. We had a bid opening on April 1st for the last of our contracts that were from the June of 2014 flood events. This is a FEMA program reimbursable contract where approximately 85% of the costs that the county incurs will be reimbursed. 75% from FEMA, 10% from the state of South Dakota. We received 2 bids on this bid letting, and $133,083 from Zacharias Construction was the low bidder. The engineer's estimate, and these contracts are kind of difficult to estimate, but the engineer's estimate was $130,000. So we're pretty comfortable with Zacharias' bid, and we've gone through that and verified all the numbers in their bid, and we are requesting approval for entering into contract with Zacharias.
Okay, look for a motion.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions for DJ on this? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Item number 16 is consider a proposal for part-time personnel for the Minnehaha County Highway Department sign crew for replacement of rural address signs. DJ Boothie.
Commissioners, last week I gave a short briefing on the successful negotiation with 3M Corporation to receive just under 7,000 rural addressing signs. And Commissioner Barth requested some additional information as he's entering in here on hiring 2 interns or a number of interns this summer in order to expedite the installation of some or all of those signs. And so we did our best at estimating the number of signs that 2 additional interns would be able to help us install this year. And I can't say with 100% certainty that 2 additional interns would be able to allow us to install all of the signs this year, but we would get a very large amount of them installed. And right now, the condition of those signs out there, the south-facing signs are by far the worst condition, and the east-west facing signs are not nearly as bad. And so we would put a priority on those south-facing signs and be able to get all the really bad signs that you've maybe seen pictures of or seen out in the field if you've driven around. We would be able to get those done this year. We should be able to get most of the signs done this year, but I can't say with 100% certainty that we'd get all of them done. The cost to hire 2 interns based off of schedules that we've seen come from our other interns, basically after school gets out until school gets going again in the fall, would be about $10,000 to $11,000 in total. And that's at the current rate of about $11 per hour. Now, we have had issues hiring our summer interns, getting enough interns to apply to fill those vacancies. And so there is a possibility that with working with HR that we might have to increase the rate of pay for some of those positions in order to get some more applicants. But I think that would be a last resort. We will try some other advertising and recruitment things to try to get some more applicants there. But $10,000 to $11,000 is my estimate. I don't know if you want to make a recommendation. I think that we don't have money budgeted necessarily for that part-time, those part-time positions. However, We do have vacancies in the department where we will have $10,000 to $11,000 of savings throughout the year, so we can make up that difference just by moving some money around with the different ASNs. And I don't think we'll need to do a supplement for this if we choose to move forward.
Okay. Any questions for DJ on this sign replacement?
DJ?
Commissioner Benega? No.
Can you install these, like, after the interns are done and you've got, say, 300 or 400 left, you can still do them in the winter and the spring and the fall?
Yeah, absolutely. We have two sign team members, and they are working full-time at basically installing these signs. And then when they receive calls on other signs, maybe a stop sign down or a no passing zone sign down, they go and they work on those higher priority signs. And then in the wintertime, both of our sign team members are part of the snow removal crew, and so that certainly takes a higher priority.
Commissioner Benega.
I was just going to ask, have you ever had a working relationship with work release individuals?
We have. It isn't always the best working relationship. We've also used temporary labor for our bridge crew specifically. And so we know that both of those are options, and I would consider them last resort type options, but they are certainly options that we can look at.
And my assumption, again, with the mechanic position that has been vacant for a little while, and a light summer, we shouldn't have any need for supplements for the end of the year.
Correct. The only thing that might change that would be if we had a very, very hard winter and we had a lot of overtime, but I don't foresee that happening anytime soon.
Thanks.
Is there any other comments? This is a consideration for proposal. Commissioner Barth?
I would just say that the reason we originally put those signs up was for public safety, and if the fire department or the sheriff or the ambulance can't read your address, they may blow right by your place and have to make a turnaround. And so I think from the point of view of public safety, I'm really appreciative that the warranty has been honored and that we're getting those signs, and I think we should try to get it done.
Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to suggest this, yes, or approve this.
Second.
Commissioner Barth has made a motion.
I don't know what I seconded.
Commissioner Kelly to authorize DJ to advertise for a part-time personnel for the summer to assist in replacing rural signs, address signs. I have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 17 is consider a motion to authorize the purchase of 2 truck chassis from Nuss Truck of Minnesota.
Commissioners, items 17 and 18, we'll address them individually, but they do go together. And we had initially, I think, on February 3rd and then again on February 10th, came before the commission requesting approval to purchase 2 additional snowplow truck bodies and chassis for our department. And they were deferred approximately 2 months, and here we are at 2 months, and that's the reason that they're on the commission agenda again. We are working on getting some additional information for the commission to consider, working with my liaison, Commissioner Benega, to get costs for basically refurbishing a couple of our existing trucks and what the cost would be for that in lieu of purchasing new trucks. And we hope to present that information at our informational meeting on April 28th. Hopefully it's ready by then. And so I think that Commissioner Benega was perhaps interested in deferring at least until we have that information available.
Okay. Commissioner Benega?
He took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay. So
I am interested in deferring this until he has the information that I requested. And then also, by that time, we should also have a solid number from the legislative process that will support some of the additional funding needed for highways and bridges.
Do we need a motion and a second to defer 17 and 18? And do you want to put a time frame on those?
We talked about 1 month, correct, or 30 days? Is that going to be enough?
May I just suggest until our information is available, we will certainly try to get it by that April 28th. But working with vendors, it's not always on our timeline. It's often on their timeline. And so to prevent having to come back to defer it another week, maybe until that information is available.
That'd be fine.
Is that all
Thank
right?
you.
I have a motion and a second to defer until information is available. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That was actually item number 17. Can we have a motion, exactly the same motion for the second one? Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
And a second, and this is a motion, a second to defer until information is available on authorizing the purchase notice of 2 combination dump truck salt spreader combination body units. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, DJ.
Thank you.
Number 19 is authorize the chairman to sign the grant agreement acceptance between Minnehaha County and the South Dakota Weed and Pest Control Commission in the amount of $6,100 for chemicals and seasonal labor. Ralph Hammer, good morning.
Good morning, Ralph Hammer, Weed Supervisor. This is a standard grant that we apply for every year, and we use it to help defray costs on chemical and seasonal labor. It's a 50-50 grant, so.
Is there any questions for Ralph? I'd look for a motion.
Move for approval.
Motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 18 is a consider a motion to declare you know what? I'm going to let you read these, Ken, but to declare some surplus property. Ken, if you want to just read those descriptions for us.
Sure. It's to consider motion to declare 2 HP Sure Store auto loaders 818, tag number 68440 and 64350, and 1 AS400 9406 model 720-2061 W6490 8mm tape drive, tag number 65270 as surplus property for purposes of disposal. Just say please, yes.
Yes. Are there any questions for Ken on this?
Are you trying to impress us with your eyesight, being able to read that?
Sorry, I made you read it from up there.
But no, we just completed a recent, every year we go through a fixed asset inventory and that review. And during that audit and review, that we noted that these fixed asset numbers and that were not declared as surplus at the proper time for disposal, and we need to rectify that record and are asking you to declare them as surplus for purposes of disposal. They came out of IT.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 21, authorize the purchase of one 2016 Ford Police Utility Interceptor in the amount of $27,245 from the Sioux Falls Ford for a contract competitive bid and awarded by the City of Sioux Falls. Kristen Trana, finally, huh, Kristen? Thank you.
Good morning, Kristen Trana with the Sheriff's Office. I worked with Scott Rust regarding this. This is something that we learned about last year. They were able to get better pricing than we were able to get on state bid. And the one thing that is a little bit of a hiccup this year, but I wanted to make sure that we get in on this pricing, is that Ford has actually stopped production on the 2015 model, which is surprising. So while we're going to go ahead and submit the order, if we get the approval from the board, it won't actually be built until this fall and delivered until this fall. But we wanted to make sure and secure this pricing. It's the same thing that the City of Sioux Falls is going to have to do as well. So I did work with Sioux Falls Ford just to make sure that they would honor the pricing for us as an agency, and also that it's going to be acceptable to them that while they bid a 2015 model, we're going to have to purchase a 2016. So.
Okay. Is there any questions for Kristen? Ken. Ken has a comment.
Commissioners, I just wanted to point out on this, and it's a result of work that we did last year on our purchasing policies to encourage departments for purchases of this type to first utilize purchasing coming off the state of South Dakota bids or the City of Sioux Falls bids whenever we could in order to take advantage of this kind of pricing.
Yep. Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 22 is Minnehaha County Commission Liaison Assignment Reports. Are there any reports? Okay, seeing number 22 or 23 is new business.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Byrd.
Commissioner Kelly and I were just talking earlier about links from our county website to some of our other organizations. And Dick, there was no link from our website to the Sioux Empire Fair, right?
No, and I talked to Monty, and he said that that shouldn't be a problem. He's going to look into it.
Okay.
And they are working on a new website. If we don't incorporate it into this one, we'll just make sure that I think that's an important enough agency that, and it's tied enough to the county commission that we should have a link on there.
Yep. Any other new business? Is there any old business? I'd look for a motion to adjourn into executive session for litigation and legal briefing.
It's my motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned.
Multiple seconds.